what are we on? Let's get into your wheelhouse here. Any updates on how you see the financial status of America since last you were on the show?
I really wish I could say that I'm being proven wrong in any way, but the
Mm-hmm.
reality is I'm still predicting depression.
Mm-hmm.
Almost a year ago, I laid out a 28-point dot plot for the path to depression.
Mm-hmm.
And going into Trump's inauguration, 8 of those had happened. We're already up to 13. The 14th pin is about to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, all of the data suggests that that's the path we're going on. As you say, a lot of it is government spending, right? Trump printed $8 trillion. Biden did about the same, although a lot of it was just handling Trump's leftover debt. And Trump's on path to do it all over again, right? He's these tax cuts that he's talking about, making permanent, will more than wipe out any gains he could conceivably come up with from eliminating waste.
Mm-hmm.
And it just creates inflationary pressure. And the thing is, like, we're already on unstable ground, right?
Yeah.
It's 11% of our FHA loans right now are delinquent. That's the highest it's been in like 20 years.
Damn.
4.7% of VA loans are delinquent. 2.62% of traditional loans, right? Those
Mm-hmm.
those are going to be more resilient, especially people that bought in 2021 and before. Those people are generally okay. They've
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of property. But that's another pin that's going to drop. That's another uh, kind of crack in the whole thing. Auto loan delinquencies. We're at our highest rate in 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not in a stable economy right now. And one of the things that Doge is doing that is actively harmful, right? They're cutting all of these jobs, all of these kind of mid-level white collar positions by and large, and they're dumping them into a, a job market that's already terrible,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we look at non-farm payroll reports over the last year or so, all of the jobs have been in three sectors, right? Tourism and hospitality, which is essentially retail. We're talking minimum wage type jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare, totally legit, right? We need all the healthcare people we can get because we've got an aging population, and government.
Mm-hmm.
That so if we're not only not growing government jobs, which I'm not opposed to, right? I don't think we should grow government jobs, but we're just taking out hundreds of thousands of them at once and then dumping them into a market that has no work for them.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen to these auto loan delinquencies, to these credit card delinquencies, to these mortgage delinquencies? Particularly the FHA one is particularly troublesome because most people that get FHA loans, they're typically lower income people. They're more supply shock sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
and they're typically the first to feel it. So if over 1 in 10 of them right now is on the razor's edge, and we haven't even started feeling the pain yet,
Yeah.
markets are at all-time highs, right? Unemployment still 4 point something percent. Discouraged workers, those are way up. But we look at all of this, and we're adding fuel to the fire, and then we've got Trump talking about just adding more inflationary pressure to everything. Understanding if people are already having a hard time keeping up with things, if you inflate even further,
Mm-hmm.
all you're going to do is ensnare more people. And as you say, he's just getting started.
Um, I actually received a call from my realtor like maybe a week ago. She said that locally builders are now building to lease when before it was like you had to live in that household for a minimum of a year before you could actually lease out for rent. But and I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like, but what are the rates are you giving people? And so they said, yeah, the banks are giving the rates at like 3.9. I was like, but that's still not enough to actually turn a profit if you're going to rent that property out to anybody. It's like it's got to be like high twos, low threes, a 3.9. Just call it a four. I was like, dude, you're not going to even break even on that. And so she's like, well, they're also expecting you to either pay full and cash or pay half down. I was like, so then basically the market is very restricted to people that already have wealth. So it's like, yeah. I was like, well, okay, so it's a very unbalanced market right now. Where do you see this going in the next 5 years? Because there's a lot of people like me that I want to push further into real estate. I already have one property. I want to get another one, buy that, turn it into a rental, into an up and coming area that I'm watching these places. But until these rates drop, I can't do anything. There's no point.
Yeah, and the thing is, the rates aren't dropping, right?
Yeah.
It's the Fed lowered their rates by 100 basis points,
Mm-hmm.
and a 30-year mortgage right now is still 7.2%.
It's nuts. It's nuts. People can't afford this shit, man. They can't
Yeah,
afford a seven. That's nuts.
yeah, and the thing is, that's so if we look at the the bond market, right? Treasuries.
Hmm.
That's a global debt market, whereas the stock market, as everybody thinks of it, is a global equity market. The global debt market is 3.8 times larger than the global equity market.
Hmm.
And what the bond market is saying is you shouldn't have done that, right? It's this isn't appropriate. You're leading us towards destruction. We don't believe you. So even though you're lowering rates, we're going to raise rates,
Right.
right? That which is why the yields keep increasing.
Hmm.
So my advice to, and not financial advice, my strategy personally, as somebody who owns over 100 properties throughout this country, I am not presently buying any real estate, even though I'm a cash buyer. Rates don't matter to me. But if I look at this economic landscape and I think that calamity is coming, and I think we're going to see 18% unemployment under this presidential administration, and I think we're going to see double-digit inflation at some point, and all of the other things that I think come with this. What I'm doing is I'm putting my cash in something that generates a stable return on investment that stays above inflation.
Hmm.
Beyond that of my ability to work the markets, right? I can always outpace anything on my marketplace, with the understanding that when that calamity comes, that's when I will buy something, right?
Right.
When
Get when it's low.
yeah, when people they're out of things in their own homes to sell, that
Hmm.
they've run out of stuff to sell and they've lost the house, and they're warming themselves at a 55-gallon barrel under a bridge somewhere, I'll go in and I'll buy that house, right? When the pain is at its worst. And I know it sounds horrible, right?
Right.
Because it sounds like I'm profiting off the misery of others. And the truth is, that is what's happening. It's not that I'm hoping for it. It's just that I understand that this train is coming, whether I want it to or not.
Hmm.
And if I want to best position myself, well, that's where I'm going to do it. Right. So I'm not looking at any real estate for the next year, year and a half,
Hmm.
just because, real estate costs have gone through the roof,
Oh my
interest rates
God.
are through the roof,
Yeah.
delinquency rates are rising. Right. So if all these delinquency rates keep rising, that means foreclosures are going to go up. Um,
Auctioning
you
off
know,
those houses. Yeah.
at a micro level, if you look at Washington D.C., in light of all those government firings, I mean, the amount of houses that have gone up for sale in Washington D.C.
Oh yeah.
astronomical just over the last couple of weeks, and the average price of a home in D.C. in the last month has fallen something like $130,000
Damn.
because there's now so much supply because everybody's getting out of town.
Yeah.
So if I think that's happening nationwide, why would I want to buy now when I can buy after all of that happens?
True. Buy on the dip. Yeah. Buy on. Yeah. For me, it's kind of like so. We'll go back real quick. You said that you want to have your funds tied up into something that are not going to be affected by inflation. Can you give me some examples for the listeners out there? And by the way, I'm not a financial advisor. Neither is Bonk, but Bonk clearly self-made millionaire. I don't know what Bonk is. Bonk's giving some advice here. You can choose to listen to it. You can choose not to. It's completely up to you. But I just want to preface with that because that way people say like, "Oh my God!" It's like just know that I'm not a professional advisor. I just know that what I'm watching right now unfold, everybody's watching unfold. So if you were going to tell somebody, give somebody some advice, and he does this on his Twitter page, you can go check him out, Bonk the Carnivore. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. So if you're listening to this podcast, you know where to find him. If you were to tie up your funds, let's just say you're on the average income, let's just say 80, 90K a year. You have very minimum to invest with. Where are you investing? If you were even going to invest, what would you do?
So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to my local bank and I'm buying some CDs. Right? They sound super. Look, think like a boomer.
Mm-hmm.
Why do boomers have so much money? It's because they put their cash in boring ass stuff that just makes money. That's
Mm-hmm.
all they do. Uh, I go to a bank and I'm going to buy a 6 month or a 12 month CD. Yes, that money is no
CD
longer
being what?
a certificate of deposit.
Okay.
So it's basically here. I'm giving you this money, and in 6 months or 12 months, you're going to give me money back plus some interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to buy some. I'm going to go into my 401k. I'm gonna get out of some of these high flying tech stocks, and I'm gonna buy bonds there. I'm gonna buy 10-year bonds. I'm gonna buy 15-year bonds. Most places, like Vanguard, Fidelity, they have targeted date retirement funds, right? A 2030 retirement, a 2040 retirement, whatever it is. I'm gonna look at whatever I think I want to retire at, as I'm gonna put some money in there, right? Because it's gonna assign risk based upon that time delta, because for all of us it's different, right? The investment strategy of somebody in their 50s is going to be completely different than somebody
Yeah.
22.
Right.
In terms of the equity market, right? The stocks, right? I always want to be in the stock market. I'm going to look for boring companies that just print money if I believe the thesis that we are heading for an economic disaster, right? If you don't believe it, disregard everything I say. But
Mm.
if you think it's coming, this is what you do. You look for boring companies that make money, ones that are stable, ones that are recession resistant. You look for companies that have a long history of a stable dividend payout. We're talking at least 20 years of dividends,
Mm.
preferably 40 or 50, right? Because remember, even in a recession or a depression, as a company's stock price go down, the dividend yield effectively goes up. So even if the equity price goes down, the fact that they're paying you every quarter, that's essentially a higher percentage that gives you more of a safe haven, right?
Mm.
You become what's known as a dividend aristocrat. You want to think of the things that no matter how bad things get for you personally, you would keep paying for:
Right.
trash pickup, gas for heating and cooking, your
Right.
phone service, hygiene products, pantry items. Specific examples: Kimberly Clark, ticker KMB. They make diapers and toilet paper.
Mm.
It doesn't get any more recession proof and non discretionary than that, right?
That's a
They're
good point.
staple goods. They're always going to be sold. So with Clark in particular, you're not going to see a lot of movement in one direction or another into the stock, especially because people are piling into it as a safe haven. But it's got that yield, right? You're going to get 3.8% as the storm of economic calamity progresses, right? Another good play, Colgate, ticker CL, right? 2.3% dividend yield, but everybody's going to keep buying toothpaste,
Mm.
right? Clorox, another good choice.
Yep.
Look at utility companies: NextEra Energy, Duke Energy, Edison. Again, dividend yields of about 3%. People will always pay to keep the lights on. Medicine, that's usually a safe haven, right?
Mm.
Companies like Bristol Myers Squibb, 4.6% yield just for parking your cash,
That's
right?
damn
Every
good.
quarter. Every quarter they pay you, just put it right back into Bristol Myers, get more money every quarter,
So
right? You
that's what
just
I've been
start
doing.
rolling over.
I've invested in four main ones, boring ones that basically fall into the lines of what you've just described. They're the main big ones. I'll read them off to you here shortly, but I literally have that. I think one I have is like a 4% yieldly dividend, but I just have it's automated to where it just purchases more of the same stock. It just continuously updates, continuously goes back in with every. I don't take any of the money. It's just like my own 401k to a degree.
Yeah, as long as you don't liquidate, you're always going to be great.
Right.
Staple foods. There's nothing sexy about Pepsi except for that 4% yield. General Mills, same thing,
Mhm.
4%. Staple commercial products, right? Business isn't going to go out of business. Weyerhaeuser is a company most people have never heard of. They make wooden paper. They were $30 5 years ago. They're $30 today. But you know what? 2.7% like clockwork. Find a way to play oil. Enbridge Energy Partners, good one there. Aerospace defense. We're never going to stop spending 25 times more than the rest of the world, right?
Right.
Lockheed Martin, good thing to go back on there.
Oh, I've
And
got
this,
I've got money in Lockheed. I do. I know
yep.
people can be very principled about it. That's fine, but it's business. If it's making money, it's making money. But my biggest ones I basically have a simplified employee plan. Who do I have? I've got QQQ. I've got Schwab. I've got SCHD, the Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity. I've got money in that. I've got just basic, boring ones. Um,
Well, the Qs are the Nasdaq. That's high beta.
mhm.
That's high risk. That in a significant economic downturn, the
Mhm.
Qs can lose 60% of their value.
Jesus. So what would
Yeah,
you say is more
that's a little
safe than
risky.
that?
Here's another. This one's morbid. It sounds really mean. Storage units.
No, that sounds
as,
yeah.
as, as, as people lose their homes, they still need places to store their precious items that have more sentimental value than resale. There's a company, Public Storage, ticker PSA. They're going to give you a 3.6 return. It doesn't cost a lot of money for the company to run itself, so
Mhm.
they're never going to go out of business. And as times get tougher, their balance sheet improves because people need to put a place to hide their photographs, right?
Right. Yep.
Um, but again, I know it sounds bad to go, I'm thinking of ways to profit off the misery of others, but you have to operate within the framework that you're given.
Right.
And so if you park your in just things like that, waste management, I called that out as one of my trade of the days a few weeks ago when the tariff thing, the Canada Mexico tariff thing was going on, and 493 of the S&P 500 was red that day. The bright green dot, waste management, because I
Hmm.
promise you, nobody's going to stop paying their trash
Makes
service.
sense. No, these are like just very minor things that you wouldn't think about, but like, yeah, that's going to continue. That definitely has to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, so that's where I put it on the equity market. Also, I deploy my money towards fortifying my empire. Right.
Hmm.
Make sure you have your emergency fund. 56% of people can't cover an expense of $1,000. Like,
Yeah.
don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Do not be that guy. General rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of reserves at all times, but your individual situation can vary, right? If you're in an industry that has furloughs that are common, or you're a small business owner, you probably want 9 to 12 months, right? Put your emergency funds into a high yield interest bearing account. Like,
Hmm.
don't throw it in Chase for 0.0002%,
Hmm.
right? Like, give it to an online bank for 5%. The idea is you're not spending it anyway, so why do
Right.
you need it liquid?
Hmm.
Pay your high interest debt down. If you've got credit cards at 30%, that's going to kill you in an economic downturn, right? The
Yep.
less interest you're paying as your cash flow weakens, the better your overall situation. Always prioritize your secured debt over your unsecured debt, right? Don't lose your house. Don't lose your car. Like, you need those things. If you've got to sacrifice something, make it your credit score. Like, stop paying your Visa card. I'm not saying don't pay your credit cards, right? You should always pay your debt. But if push comes to shove,
Yeah.
like, and you've got to make a choice between something that the bank can take from you, like your house, or
Right.
something like a credit card company that's just going to, tell you that they're not going to give you any more free money.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, seems pretty obvious to me, right?
Right. That's like worst case scenario. Like, I'd rather
Yeah,
the bank just
exactly.
say, "Hey, we're gonna tank your credit." It's like, well, I've got my car. I got what I need. It's like, I get it.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk about these things, but the reality is, some of your listeners, because some of
Yeah.
everybody is going to run into this problem, and it's gonna happen in the next year or two. Um, and people need to think about that. How you're going to deploy your capital for that. Understand your budget, right? You need a complete image of that.
Hmm.
Get a tool, whether it's Mint or Personal Capital, or you need a budget. Get something so you know exactly where all of your cash is being distributed every month. Because if you have that knowledge, you can manipulate those numbers to keep yourself afloat. Never stop putting into your retirement accounts. Remember, those are protected accounts. Creditors cannot come after your 401k. They can't come after your IRA. Those are hidden. Those are safe. Those are protected. No matter what they do, they can't get there. Now, you can pull out of those if, like, shit gets really bad. In a worst case scenario, you can do a hardship pullout, but as long as it's sitting in there, nobody can take that from you. So, a lot of common mistakes people make when things start getting rough is they start, lowering their contribution to the retirement funds. Do not do
Hmm.
that.
Right.
Right? Remember, over time, markets go up, economies go up. This is a snapshot in time we're going to enter, and I don't know how long it's going to be bad, but eventually it will return. Right?
Hmm.
So don't panic. That's the biggest thing. The moment you pull your investments, you lock in
You
your
lost.
losses.
Yeah.
Right? Over time, they almost always recover. Staying the course ensures that you don't sell low and buy high.
Well, that makes sense. Makes sense. Like, you'll never take a loss as long as you hold on to it.
Yep.
Well, I hope this does pull out. I hope it does rebound, but I'm telling you right now, like, I'm waiting. I'm just watching the real estate market. I'm watching those Fed rates because I'm hoping, whenever